bumped out of the first round twice. Despite the promising transition of Tim Duncan to Kawhi Leonard, not even the Spurs could manage to keep their level up, and until this year had looked directionless. The Warriors are at this point. While you could have argued they had done it earlier in the year, I wanted to hold off given the surprisingness of their 2022 championship. But the trio of Curry, Klay, and Thompson is done. 4 championships and 6 finals appearances is nothing to be ashamed about. But 2 things can be true. Warriors fans should be thankful for everything and should cherish the memories brought on by this team, as they've seen some of the most dominant play that we have seen in all of sports. But it's also time to look forward to the future and creating a new core. Klay Thompson is done. He is not the player he once was, and he is not the player that he was paid this season. This isn't an insult to Klay. He's one of the greatest shooters of all time and will go down as one of the best two-way players ever and one of the best wings of the 2010s. He's a future Hall of Famer. He has suffered some of the most devastating injuries an athlete can receive in an Achilles tear and an ACL tear. It's impossible to be the same level of player. Despite some ugly performances and a bad showing in the most important game of the year, Klay was still a good shooter. He shot 39% from 3 on 9 attempts a game. This isn't as good as his prime, but it's not bad shooting. He was second on this Warriors squad, scoring 18 points per game and played 77 games this year, but he also came off the bench most since his rookie season. And for Klay, his benefit was his defense. Even when his shot wasn't hitting, you could always depend on him to play good defense against the opposing team's best player. But injuries took this away, and the modern game doesn't have a whole lot of room for an unathletic player who can primarily only shoot. For the first time since his rookie year, Klay had a negative on-court rating, being outscored by half a point per 100 possessions. This doesn't sound like a lot, however last year he outscored opposing teams by 3, and in his prime, he would outscore them by 15. His on-off ratings were also miserable, as offensively Golden State would say the same, being around a top 10 offense regardless of if he was on the court or not. However, opposing offenses would get nearly 7.5 points better per 100 possessions with Klay Thompson on the court. This would only be the second time beyond his rookie season Klay would have a negative on-off rating. No team can succeed with their second best player playing like this, and with Klay Thompson being paid $43 million this season, he is no longer worth this contract. However, his contract expires this offseason, meaning that Klay may have just played his last game as a Warrior. Honestly, I wouldn't blame Klay Thompson for retiring. He suffered bad injuries and is going to be 35 years old next season. He's a likely Hall of Famer and has accomplished everything a player can accomplish on the court. And he was also seen taking it all in as the Warriors walked off for the final time this season. Should Klay not retire, it can go one of 2 ways. He can re-sign with Golden State and spend his career with one team. He probably won't win anymore, but he will give fans their last memories of him playing in a Warriors uniform. Ideally, he'd be coming off the bench and be in a role where he isn't as relied on, and he could be benched when his shooting just isn't working. The other option would be to see him enter free agency, but I don't know if this is the best route for him either. There is a pretty talented wing class with Paul George having a player option, Tobias Harris, James Harden, Gordon Hayward, DeMar DeRozan, and Buddy Hield all becoming free agents and all being better players than Klay Thompson at this point in their careers. For $10, maybe $15 million a year, I could see a team signing Klay for a 1 or 2 year deal, likely relying for him to come off of the bench in that 6th man role. No matter what direction Klay Thompson ends up going, he's had an amazing career but is no longer the great player he once was. And as far as contracts go, that's really it. Curry, Wiggins, Green, and Paul are all set to be on the team next season, and there are some difficult questions for the Warriors to answer. Let's start off with talking about Chris Paul, as he is owed $30 million next season. He wasn't awful, but like Klay, he isn't worth the money. This was the worst year of Paul's career, which is saying a lot in 18 years. His advanced stats still point him towards becoming a neutral player, but stats aside, his leadership and locker room presence is still invaluable beyond the stat sheet. I'd also argue that he really wasn't at his best while playing alongside Curry, and that Golden State saw better minutes for him coming in for Curry rather than being alongside him. Paul wants to win a championship, and in his own words, he says he can't even process not winning a ring before retiring, but he is going to be 39 years old, owed $30 million. No team is going to want to touch that. Honestly, it would be a massive shame to see a player like him retire without winning a ring, but he's not going to win a ring as a Warrior. If he values the money and the contract alone, he can stay in Golden State and then try again when he is 40. But honestly, his best option might be to see if both parties can agree to a contract buyout. He can't win with Golden State, and the Warriors don't want to pay him this great amount. The only benefit I can see him having having for them is the impact he can have on their promising core. But even after Paul's contract expires next year, the team still has Green, Curry, and Wiggins. For the 2025-26 season, these three guys are paid almost $120 million. Andrew Wiggins is honestly someone I love as a player. He can cut well and finish around the rim. He had a down year shooting wise, but has shown promise in spacing out the floor and is known for being a good defender. Becoming 29 years old next season, he's young, but he just doesn't fit this team's current timeline. He might be slightly overpaid right now, but I don't see Wiggins as a bad player at all, and I expect that we're going to be seeing him in plenty of trade talks as he is the Warriors' most movable piece. I could see the right team giving up a draft pick or a prospect to have Wiggins put them over the edge for a championship. Draymond Green is in a tough situation. It's no hot take to say that Green is washed, and I don't know how many teams would really want to bring him in. Who doesn't he have beef with these days? I guess not LeBron James. I would also say that for the entirety of their careers and at their prime, I think Green played a more valuable role to the Warriors than Klay Thompson. He was arguably the best defender in the league, a good passer, a good small ball center, and an emotional leader. But Green also needed the Warriors. He needed a system that hid his weaknesses and amplified his strengths. I don't know how many teams beyond Golden State is really going to give him that. And that's not to mention all the off-court drama and all the other issues that we have seen with Draymond this year and in the last few years. This year alone, he choked Rudy Gobert, punched Jusuf Nurkic, was suspended 12 games, got 2 technicals in 4 minutes, and was ejected against the Magic, not counting all the other altercations he had throughout the season. At what point does Golden State just have enough with him? Well, I wouldn't justify any of this type of behavior. It's at least okay when he was a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, but now he is owed $75 million for the next 3 seasons. He might just be someone who hangs around with Golden State as they likely fall into mediocrity or retire before his contract ends. And then there is Steph Curry, who will be 36 next season. Steph is the one player who I can confidently say is worth the contract he's paid. And while he won't be worth $60 million 2 years from now, he's probably still going to be a really good player at that age. And personally, I don't want to see Steph Curry leave the Warriors. I just can't imagine him suiting up anywhere else. However, I don't see Golden State winning a championship in the next 3 years either. So this is what they're stuck with. Golden State overpaid for their main core in an attempt to extend its lifespan, and they only made that worse by bringing in Chris Paul, albeit Chris Paul got rid of a long Jordan Poole contract. But without front office magic, Golden State is likely stuck with some of the worst contracts in the NBA. Well, I think it's best for them to move on and get a head start on the rebuild. I don't know if that's going to happen. We rarely see a team not go all in when they possess a top 10 player in the league, let alone a top 15 player of all time. I still believe that right now, Steph Curry can be the best player on a championship team, and like I said, I don't foresee him wearing any other uniform. I don't think it's unreasonable to see them go all in and likely not see a different result than what they did this season. But the one silver lining of this is the youth that proved themselves this year. Jonathan Kuminga made a huge leap this year and will likely be in the most improved player conversation. Brandon Podziemski played a valuable role and will be on one of the all-rookie teams. Moses Moody had good minutes this year and he played well against the Kings. These guys are all 21 years old and all have team-friendly contracts. I could see Golden State selling what's left of their future, maybe bundling them with draft picks and Andrew Wiggins for a high-level player and keeping Klay Thompson on bird rights. But that's trading a lot of their future and their depth for a core that I don't believe in. The other option is to keep them and have them usher in the next era of Warriors basketball. But in doing so, that might just waste the last 2 good years of Steph Curry's career. The Warriors, as we know them, are dead. 2/3 of their core are washed and they have a myriad of bad contracts. Warriors fans are in for a long offseason as the team that defined basketball and changed the game is over. Dynasties, no matter how powerful at their peak, always fall. Golden State has fallen right before our own eyes. The only question is if they're going to feed into their future or slowly die out.